Thanks for joining us for In Studio from Simply Timeless. I'm Jay Daniels. The musical journey for pianist Benny Green continues with his latest release called Benny's Crib. While Benny has long been known for his work as an acoustic pianist, this album prominently showcases his talents at the Fender Rhodes. Benny will tell us about how the music of the 70s influenced his love for that instrument, and plus we'll hear some details about a new solo piano project. Here's Benny Green.
In jazz, we get to choose our own notes, of course, and there's so much that's going on internally and externally in every moment, and there's such a freedom in jazz to respond honestly to what's going on. Oh, it's ultimate therapy for me, who loves the music and loves to get to play. And of course, while we're in quarantine, I want to see the situation as an opportunity. Myself and countless other musicians aren't having the same kind of exchange that we get in spontaneous improvisation with other musicians before an audience. And it's such a magical thing we've been shown. And yet, it's clear as day that we've all been chosen to be here in this very interesting time. And I just feel that myself and all of us who love the heritage and the legacy of jazz, the feeling that it brings us, and all of us who are grateful for the recordings that have been left to us, who play the music, realize that we have a responsibility spiritually, psychologically, mentally, to stay on our positive path, because we're artists and people look to us, artists, for hope and meaning in these times. So we've got to keep it together. And, we try to keep each other strong, myself and my fellow artists, and people like you, Jay, who encourage the music. I feel like we do it together.
You have certainly come to be respected and admired for many, not just for your talents, which are many, let me just say that right now, but also because of your outlook on life, your honesty and your humbleness especially. I think people really do respect that in you, and you've had the pleasure of working with a number of great jazz artists over the years. Let's just name a few: Art Blakey, Betty Carter, Freddie Hubbard, and Ray Brown, just to name a few. Um, you mentioned this very connective experience within the jazz ensemble, and you bring that together, especially through your latest recording. The name of the album is called Benny's Crib, and it's, as you put it in the liner notes, it's a sort of continuation from a 2018 album that you did called Then and Now. There is one change in the lineup, but it features, along with you at the piano, there's David Wong on bass, Aaron Kimmel on drums, and Drummond actually provides a good bit of flute accompaniment. There's also Josh Jones on congas and Veronica Swift on vocals. Now, you do play acoustically on a couple of tracks, but I was very intrigued to hear you play more of the Rhodes. And for those who may not be familiar with the instrument, kind of describe what the Rhodes is and the sort of sound that it produces as a keyboard.
The Rhodes, which is traditionally known as a Fender Rhodes, is an electric piano, as you mentioned. And when I grew up in the 1970s, I was born in 1963, the electric piano, often a Fender Rhodes, as you mentioned, or a Wurlitzer, such as we hear Joe Zawinul play on Mercy, Mercy, Mercy with Cannonball Adderley, also a distinctive sound. That was actually the more prevalent sound for a keyboard instrument on records on the radio in the 1970s than an acoustic piano. The Rhodes electric piano, specifically to me, has a timbre that's the closest instrument I would compare it to is almost like the vibes, like a vibroharp. It doesn't really sound like a piano, but it responds to some things in a similar way to a piano. But the tone of the instrument, this is very difficult for me to describe technically. We're getting outside of my wheelhouse here, but it's very saturated in the middle register, very rich and dark. One who appreciates the instrument, from listening to people play it. There have been so many people who really excel at the Fender Rhodes, like Herbie Hancock and Stevie Wonder and Larry Dunn, who played with Earth, Wind and Fire, George Duke. So many people, they're really great with the Rhodes, Chick Corea, and unnamed people, and of course, like the great Donny Hathaway, but people who aren't famous, who are just part of that sound of the Rhodes, which was really, really in heavy usage, say from the late 1960s throughout the 70s. In the 80s, the popular keyboard instrument became what was known as a DX7 synthesizer. Rhodes owned the 70s, and having grown up in that era, I've had a fondness and affinity for the sound of the instrument, but also coming up professionally, I'm maybe a half a year, barely a year younger than Wynton Marsalis, just to place me generationally. And at the time that I came up professionally, Wynton kind of restarted. He kind of started a renaissance of young people wearing suits and ties again when he came along in the early '80s, and there was a kind of, if you will, it's kind of a cliche term, but sort of a neoclassicism that was going on in jazz. And so I was coming on as a professional in those times, and somehow I have felt for many years, Jay, that it would be perceived by the public or the critical faction of the so-called jazz police that me playing a Rhodes on one of my own records would be a sort of commercial effort on my part, that I was, quote, selling out. And that is very much informed by the generation that I came up in. Because, of course, it's an instrument. And selling out means doing something that your heart isn't in because someone told you it's what you're supposed to do, and you didn't listen to your own heart. You listen to someone else. That's selling out. Selling out doesn't mean what instrument you play. It means if you're doing it because it's really something you have a soul conviction to do, or it's something you're doing for other reasons. I feel like it's not a radical move on my part to bring the instrument into a jazz album. I think maybe it's, as I said, a sort of extension, if not a departure on my part, to play Rhodes on the entire album. Because in fact, the acoustic piano is my true instrument, my primary instrument. And I just want to say that me playing the whole program on Rhodes actually just sort of occurred organically, Jay. It wasn't the specific plan I set out to do. What I wanted to do was kind of continue with what I'd been doing on the previous album that you mentioned, Then and Now, which was integrating the acoustic piano and electric piano, kind of combining the two, layering them. And long and short of it is it just sort of happened, track by track, that the album became Rhodes. And I had a really great time with it. But as we speak, I had an opportunity to go into the studio to record some solo acoustic piano tracks last night. And it was such a kick. Piano's my baby is what I want to say, Jay.
I hear you.
Yeah, I love the Rhodes, and I do believe, it's difficult to find the exact philosophy to apply, but I believe that the two can peacefully coexist. But I need to be very honest with myself. The piano is my lady, and I just need to keep my priorities straight.
You got to know who you have to come home to at night,
Absolutely. Well, the beautiful thing with the piano doesn't say, I don't like the way you played me last night. Like, I don't feel like playing today. The piano says, here I am. What do you have for me today?
You are the sort of musician, like so many, who never wants to stop growing in their talent and expertise at the instrument. Uh, how do you think that this album, Benny's Crib, best describes or best portrays this particular period in your career?
Sometimes it's difficult in the moment to kind of gauge the significance of where we were in the very recent past, last week or 2 weeks ago. And the way I see it in this moment, I feel that the album Benny's Crib was a kind of transition for me, but not a transition per se into playing the Rhodes more. Many things in my life, my spiritual life and personal life, and professional life, uh, were kind of changing seasons. I would say, Jay,
Mm.
when I was making the record, and I don't mean to like be overly abstract about it, but at the same time, I don't know. I don't know so much. If I'm just being honest, I don't know. I don't know what it represents. Uh, if I may, in this moment, I kind of like not knowing. I'm feeling like it was something I needed to do. Something I needed to play a lot of Rhodes. Maybe uh, it was kind of a coiled spring that I've been wanting to do for years, and yet my love for playing the acoustic piano uh, feels deeper than ever before. Even though we're in this time that performers aren't getting to perform the way we traditionally do, and it's I'm very much in my heart at this time to go deeper into just me and the piano, solo piano. I have a personal concept I've been kind of looking at and considering for some years, and only getting sporadic opportunities when I have performed solo to apply. But it's a sort of a minimalistic approach in which I don't look to utilizing the platform of solo piano per se to try to show off how much piano I can play, and I think that that's kind of a losing proposition for a maturing artist. I think it's a young person's game to like try to show how much you can play in a sort of athletic sense. But I think as we get older, and one looks to older people uh, in terms of maturity to be able to impart a feeling or truthfulness with a minimal amount of words. What I'm thinking about with the piano at this time is really distilling the essence of what it is I do when I'm playing with bass and drums, and not uh, looking to the arena of playing solo piano as an opportunity to kind of show off my wares, which, as I said, I think is really a young person's endeavor. But it's really an opportunity for me to find the courage, Jay, to allow all that space and silence that one would allow playing the piano when they do have a rhythm section. And that's the personal challenge that I'm looking at, and it's a kick. And that wonderful feedback that we get playing for audiences is how us musicians, us artists, get a chance to work out our concepts. And I'm really grateful for the positive feedback I've gotten on this direction I'm wanting to take. Because what I see as I get older is there's always going to be young kids coming along who can run faster. And the young person looks to the older person not to run faster than they, but to really express some fruits of their life seasoning, of their experience. Uh, and that's what I believe. If what we're sharing in life is communication and expression, emotional transference, that I think an experienced person, an older person, as I get older now, 57, uh, has that kind of responsibility to put aside the childish things of saying, look how fast I can go, and really look at speaking, making a statement, and letting go of the impulse to impress for the sake of getting acceptance and adulation, which is a very heavy drug for performers. But it's important for an older artist to be able to see the ego for what it is. And I think as we get older and we just consider that maybe like the amount of years that we have left are less than the years that we've had behind us, uh, we want to try to do something, if not great, we at least don't want to do anything stupid. We don't want to play any stupid notes. And I want to do my very best, if I'm no innovator, Jay, to at least play with maturity and uh, and tell a story and be able to get my message across with a minimal amount of anything extraneous.
Some of my favorite albums are like what you are doing right now, where it's just solo piano, solo guitar, and you I think what we're hearing is not only the technique that you have worked at for years, and God knows you could show off some things. I've heard your work. I know what you're capable of. But I think the beauty of what you're doing now is that you are letting the audience hear your heart through this music. And I think that's what makes a lasting impression.
Wow. Well, thank you for saying that, Jay. I am completely with you that the heart of these great enduring songs that are relevant to people of all generations is in the melodies themselves. And it's so powerful for us musicians and maybe all artists to consider that melodies that have endured throughout the ages are all simple and singable. We can take that at face value, we can peel back some more layers, but anyone can be complicated. That takes no skill, but to be direct and to somehow get another person to be reminded of something that's universal, that's shared emotionally, to be able to get to that with a few notes, just a sequence of intervals, that's brilliant. But anyone can be complicated. That doesn't take any practice or experience. But to be simple and direct, that calls for humanity, uh, so much insight and intention. I share in your admiration of what people gave us, as we know some of those great songs that you referred to, were written in depressed times and were intended to be very uplifting and inspire hope in a genuine kind of way. And indeed, all that sincerity of why the songs are written is actually there in the spirit of the melodies. It's really magical, isn't it?
It is. It's kind of in that same realm. I have my last question for you, and this may be one that you need to think on for a moment, but here it is. My final question for you. Why music?
When I think of your question, the immediate answer that presents itself to me, if I were to put it into words, because my response is a feeling I'll try to verbalize, it's the safest and the realest, the most inviting and healing place I know, Jay, is music. That's my honest reaction to your question. Is I just when you asked me that and I thought about it, I just felt the intuitive sense on an animal level that that's where I go, that's my place. And as to why, there's such a great mystery to life. I know that the first thing that comes to mind as to why is my father. My father gave it to me. My father and his records and his saxophone and hearing it and seeing what the music did for him and really falling in love with the music through taking in my father's love affair and respect for the music and the culture. I just feel like it was given to me, it was presented to me early on, and like from the beginning, from a very, very early age, uh, it's been what's real to me. It's been what's real to me is the music. So I can't really imagine too long or seriously uh, another pursuit that would really sustain my passion and my interest, like music. I just can't even think of anything else. And life willing, I don't want to have to even make that choice. I'm just so grateful to get to play. And speaking with yourself today, Jay, I'm reminded, while me and us artists can be very self-critical of that which we're not, and we measure ourselves against our heroes and inspirations, and we deal with a lot of inevitable sort of self-loathing as artists. It's really gratifying to be reminded that people are listening and finding appreciation in some of the aspects of the music that perhaps us players don't otherwise take time to consider as meaningful to listeners without you letting us know, if that makes any sense. Jay, I just want to say thank you.
Pianist Benny Green, our in studio guest from Simply Timeless. His album is called Benny's Crib, and it's available from Sunnyside. More available at bennygreenmusic.com. We too are thankful for the opportunity to speak with Benny, and I personally look forward to our next conversation with him about the next album. Until we meet again, I'm Jay Daniels, thanking you for joining us in studio.